Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you enjoyed my last videos. So today we are going to talk about a very fundamental and basic thing about COVID, which is about its diagnostics. So whether it's COVID or any other disease, the first step towards identifying whether you have the disease are its diagnostics. Okay, so diagnostics are pretty common in our lives because, like, for example, we get ourselves tested for our glucose level, for our cholesterol levels, and even for some cancers you can actually get yourself tested for particular types of cancer using the diagnostics. So when COVID-19 emerged, the first thing was to how to identify the diseased individual. Yes, they have symptoms, but you need to have a confirmatory test to say that okay, this person has COVID and this person has not. So you have to distinguish. In the very early days, what happened that the COVID-19 genome was actually sequenced. Okay, and from there, what actually is a molecular biology technique of what we called as PCR, the polymerase chain reaction, that was used to diagnose this disease. So this was primarily RT-PCR, or like any kind of PCR is generally not used as a diagnostic measure, but in case we didn't have a choice, we didn't know about this virus, so and this seemed the most confirmatory and logical thing to do. So we have currently 2 or 3 types of diagnostics that are available in the market for COVID. The first one is a PCR based test, a polymerase chain reaction based test. The second one we're going to discuss is a more coming up, a faster one is antibody or a serological based test. Some recent ones are also coming up based on CRISPR-Cas9, and there are some other techniques also that we're going to discuss. So starting off with the PCR based test, so what we are doing, what the scientists, our researchers are doing in case of COVID-19 is what we call is a RT-PCR. Okay, so you have to think that though it's commonly said as RT-PCR, it's basically more of a RRT. Why? Because it stands for real-time reverse transcriptase PCR. Big jargon, not to confuse. Okay, so the reverse transcriptase PCR, I'll tell you in brief, as we discussed in our last video as well. So the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the genome of it is a positive single-stranded RNA. Okay, so this is the only genetic material we have, and we have to determine whether a person has this or not based on this genetic material. So what we do is that generally in a PCR setup, a RNA sample cannot be used because it cannot be amplified. It's a single-stranded thing. Okay, so what we do is that we convert that RNA into its complementary DNA. Okay, using an enzyme called reverse transcriptase. Now, why reverse transcriptase? The process for conversion of DNA to RNA in a normal process is called transcription, and from RNA to protein is translation. So in this case, we are doing a reverse of transcription. We are converting basically RNA to DNA back, so using the enzyme reverse transcriptase. So this is called reverse transcription. Okay, so first step is to convert that RNA to DNA, and this DNA is then used in a reaction which is known as polymerase chain reaction. Basically it's nothing, it's like a Xerox copy machine which basically amplifies it in a very, very high number, because the amount that you obtain in a sample is really, really small. So you have to amplify it, let's say, to 1 million copies to actually estimate it quantitatively. Okay, so what they do is that we use a kind of an enzyme called Taq polymerase, and we amplify the DNA that is obtained from the RNA. Then that RNA is actually obtained from the virus, okay, from the sample. We're going to talk more about the sampling a bit later. What happens is that once we get the DNA, now you might ask that what is it, like, how do you specifically identify that it's from SARS-CoV-2? So now that we know the genetic sequence, which is like a long thread, the letters of this book, okay, the book which is the genome sequence of this virus. So it's similar to what you do when you go to a library, right? You search for a book, okay? You ask the librarian, okay, do you have this book? And if the librarian says yes, you start reading that. So in case of this, say this genome, what you obtain from your sample is your library. You take a specific segment of it, okay, so that specific segment is actually complementary to your, complementary means it's matching to the SARS-CoV-2 genome. So you ask the library, do you have this specific segment which belongs to SARS-CoV-2? And this machine and this process basically tries to match up. Okay, so if you have like a genome like this, your primer, this thing, but the specific thing is actually termed as primer. So the primer basically, matches it here, and once it binds, it continues to, this chain reaction continues throughout the whole strand of the viral DNA, like the cDNA, which is obtained from the RNA. You have to remember again. So yeah, so once we have from the RNA, we do a complementary DNA. We have designed certain primers which are specific to this viral DNA right now, and it amplifies. So it carries this reaction onward, and we get a double-stranded DNA. And we do this for a long, like 20-30 cycles, and it basically is like a geometric progression. From one strand you get 2 to 4, and like this. So even after 20-30 cycles, you can have millions of amount of this of the viral DNA. So in case you have a little bit of there in your sample, this primer is going to identify, and then it's going to start to read and amplify it. So, and this amplification can also be quantified. Okay, that's why it is called a real-time PCR. Okay, so real time means it's going to quantify in real time, like how much was present in the sample. So there are specific probes which are attached to the primers, and whenever there's a double strand forming, one reaction is complete, one complete double strand is forming, it gives a signal in the form of light. Okay, and this can be again amplified and detected. Okay, so the more light signal you have, there is of course a threshold value. Beyond that, how much light signal a particular sequence is given, you can back calculate to see how much quantitatively your original viral load was. So this is the most confirmatory test for this. So you have to remember, when it comes to diagnostic, 2 or 3 things are very, very important. One is the accuracy, how accurate you are, like how many times it is testing a positive case, and how many false negatives it's just giving. Okay. Secondly, it should be specific. It should definitely identify only SARS-CoV-2 and not anything else. So you have to find definite specific regions in the SARS-CoV-2 genome to design this kind of an experiment and this kind of a test. And lastly, it should be sensitive enough, okay, that even with small amount of samples, PCR tests are generally sensitive, even with small, because you amplify it millions of times and you have a large quantity of DNA. So that is what is the sensitivity, is that how much small amount of sample can actually run your reaction. So for this, what we use as a sample is basically a nasopharyngeal swab, okay, because this is a respiratory virus and it mainly accumulates in your respiratory pathways. So what the doctors do, or the test person will do, is to put a swab. A swab is just a stick with a cotton bud, which we say use for a year. Just that's it. It's more long, it's more flexible. So you insert it through your nasal cavity, and ideally it should go till here, where you hit the back, like you hit resistance at the back of your throat, and from there you kind of rotate it so that the secretions are absorbed. They are put very aseptically into the tube, into a biohazard bag, and then they're transported. Transportation is very, very important, because RNA are very, very known to degrade. So if your sample is not transported in an ice box or in -20, many of the samples can degrade. So I remember, like, even in our labs, when we used to extract RNA, we had to be utmost careful about it. We had to wear caps, we cannot talk, because and wear gloves, etc., because even our hands will have a lot of RNAs. So RNase is an enzyme which is present everywhere, and it degrades RNA. And RNA is less stable than DNA because it's a single-stranded thing. So you have to be very, very utmost careful about it. So the transportation needs to be done as soon as possible, and then you go to a lab, and then it is getting tested. But remember, the problem with this RT-PCR test is that it is a little time consuming. Though it's 90%, the accuracy as we're talking about is about 90%, 90 to 98% in some cases. The problem is that it takes time. You catch the sample, you transport it, you do this test, and even the PCR test, PCR runs for 2-3 hours. So you have a lag of around 24 to 48 hours to get a confirmatory test. So what people are doing is to come up with faster diagnostics. Okay, so faster diagnostics. So people, what scientists have found out, that whenever you are affected with COVID, the body immediately surmounts an immune response. Okay, and this immune response is in the form of antibodies. So what if we measure this antibodies, because these antibodies are going to be very, very specific. So what they do, it's similar to a pregnancy test. What we call is a rapid testing, is a serological based test. So instead of throat swab, what we have is blood. Okay, so you need a very small amount of blood. You need a blood prick, like very small amount, 10 microliter of blood will do. It's a test strip. You put your blood there, and the blood basically migrates along the strip, which is a paper strip sometimes, or it's a polymer strip, and it goes to a place where there is a conjugate. Okay, now this conjugate exactly identifies this antibody, and many a time they are conjugated to nanoparticles like gold, which basically gives a color. Okay, and also there is a control line. It's exactly similar to a pregnancy test, like a test kit, but a second line basically gives an idea whether the test has worked or not. Okay, you put a buffer and it migrates. So there we have some already the conjugate is already coupled to a colored like the nanoparticle, which gives a color. So yeah, if you have two like bars on the test, you are supposed to be positive for this. But the problem with this serological test is that it has an accuracy of about 80%. Okay, now why? Because many a time the immune response takes time. Okay, so when you are attacked by, say, a virus, it might take several days to even weeks to surmount immune response, and that needs to be detectable. So generally in this test, I forgot to tell that there are basically many a time, two types of antibodies, namely IgM and IgG. IgM is produced when you have an initial response. For a late response, you have something called the IgG. Okay, anyway, jargons apart. So is that my point is that it takes a lot of time, even for, and also for asymptomatic individuals or people who have milder symptoms, the immune response might be lesser. Also for people who are already immunocompromised, they are immunosuppressed for some reason, for their health reasons, they might not show this response. So it can of course be used in a large sense, like you can screen, because it's rapid. It takes like 5 to 10 minutes or less than that to do it, but it can be used for large scale screening, like when you are trying to screen healthcare workers, or you are trying to see who all are fit to join back to work, or in to find clusters where people are getting affected. So for primary screening, rapid tests are actually getting used a lot. Also for a lot of surveillance for government purposes, this can be used. These are basically, the principle, as I told you, is more what you called is an ELISA based and a lateral flow thing, because it just flows along a strip and gives you that test. So there are some variations which are also coming in case of COVID diagnostics. One interesting part was where we discussed the RT-PCR test, and we talked about the time that it consumes. So one agency from Singapore, the agency of the A-Star, basically they have come up with something called CPAT, which means which is a Malay word actually. So I think which means fast. I'm not too sure. Yeah. So they have come up with that. So the PCR reaction involves a lot of steps where there are different temperatures happening. Okay. So this takes time. You go from 95 to 55 to 75, and this goes on for 20-30 seconds. So that's what takes time. So what they have come up is to have a mechanism, use an enzyme which works at just one single temperature. So it reduces the time to a lot of extent. So it takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes to do this test. They are yet to commercialize it. Hopefully it will come soon. There is another very interesting thing that has been done by two or more companies. Even in India, the CSR IGIV has come up with it, where we are, and some other companies like Mammoth and Sherlock, where they are using actually a CRISPR-Cas based system. So I don't know if you have heard about it. CRISPR-Cas is actually a very, very important molecular biology tool that has come up, which is basically found in bacteria, and they use it to kill viruses. Very interesting, right? So basically what happens is that they have something called a CRISPR. Okay, the full form is a bit longer, so I'll just simplify it. Is that saying it is a basically what you call is a guide DNA, and it has a nuclease, like a enzyme, attached to that DNA. So the enzyme when can cleave another DNA with which this guide RNA binds. Okay, so this guide RNA, wherever it binds, the enzyme will go with it and it will chop this guide the identifiable DNA. Okay, so what they have done is that I'm not too sure about the technology, but they have something called a reporter gene. So the reporter gene has two parts. So once it is cut off by the Cas enzyme, basically people use Cas9, Cas12, Cas13, anything. They have a lot of modifications. So once they cut this reporter gene, it releases a light signal. Okay, so that's how they are trying to like a light or a color based signal which basically diagnostics it. So yeah, that has a lot of implications, because this, yeah, it's going to be more rapid, and yeah, this is going to be more specific as well, because you need this the guide RNA and the reporter gene basically will be very specific to the genome. Okay, so that is one thing. So yeah, these are the kind of diagnostics that are currently available for COVID, and hopefully in the coming months we will have one thing. I'll end with a beautiful perspective to think that we are of course complaining a lot that okay, we are not having enough diagnostic kits, we are not having diagnostic kits which are rapid enough. But think about it, when SARS happened in the last 2003, we had the first diagnostics coming several months after the first outbreak, like maybe 6 months. And in case of COVID, we have the first diagnostics happening within weeks of the first outbreak. So that's, I think, a long way which we have come in the last 17 years, and that is just due to the concerted efforts of a lot of scientific groups, collaborative research, and this was happening real fast, even with such kind of lockdowns happening. So that is one positive thing. We should always look forward to what science can actually achieve for us. So we wish that we have the better diagnostics, we have faster diagnostics, and diagnostics are available for majority of people. So that way we can surely trace, we can isolate and control the outbreak of this disease. Thank you for watching. Stay home and stay safe.